All right, hey, hi, and hello, everyone. Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you are doing well, and it's time for a live show review slash assessment. I caught Death Grips on their brand new tour. The groundbreaking and now influential and legendary industrial hip hop outfit, they're back on the road for the first time, I believe, since they came out with their last record Year of the Snitch around 2018. Things for them have been pretty silent since the drop of that record in terms of like performances and new music. And many fans, me included, are hoping that this tour is like a signal of like a new record on the way. Not that it would be entirely necessary for a band like Death Grips to drop, because again, their music is so idiosyncratic and has proven to like really withstand the test of time, at least in the decade plus span that a lot of it has been out. I don't know if there are a lot of underground groups that you could name that haven't released an album or even a new single in like half a decade, and yet they could still fill up venues that have caps of a few thousand people or so. So the amount of people the band is still pulling at this point in their career, to me, was pretty impressive. And I basically went into this show, musically speaking, with the mindset of like seeing an old friend, because you guys know I've been listening to Death Grips for well over a decade at this point. I've seen them 3 times prior as well. One time at a show in Boston. I saw them at another time at a South by Southwest set around the No Love Deep Web era, where there's obviously that photo of me. My teeth are like... There's like a Facebook group that posts that same picture of me all the time. But yeah, that was an intense show that I didn't really kind of go into this expecting Death Grips to top. I don't actually expect most shows to top that show ever. I don't know if many shows will ever top that show in my mind. People were stage diving. It was dark. It was sweaty. It was absolute pandemonium, which honestly, as great as it was, I'm not looking to relive that or anything. And then I saw them another time after that at this open air festival in Texas, from a distance. I was like, you know what? I was in the eye of the storm once and felt this close to like, you know, not being able to breathe. And I don't know if I want to be there again. But yeah, the sound at that Texas festival was not the best. And, you know, it wasn't so conducive to a great performance. In a nutshell, those are the 3 times I've seen Death Grips. And so again, went into this new show just being like, you know, where is the band at right now? Energy-wise, they have such a large catalog. What songs, what tracks, what hits are they going to be favoring? Will the vibe, will the stage show, will the setup of things be significantly changed in any way whatsoever? You know what? Honestly, after all these years, the answer to that, no. Death Grips is still pretty much being Death Grips, delivering these very explosive, no frills, no BS performances, antisocial as hell. You know, there's no waving, there's no thank yous, there's no between song banter or anything like that. It's the band just blowing through song after song after song, pretty much medley style. Some tracks weren't even getting fully played all the way through because there would be a quick transition or beat switch that would just bring us into the next song immediately. With this formula, the band was able to blow through just about 30 songs in the set that I caught. The whole thing lasted, I think, just under 90 minutes or so. No encore. The band's not waiting in the back, seeing if everybody's going to clap and be like, yeah, please come back out. And they're like, okay, guys, all right. We're going to give you one more. We're going to give you one more, everybody. They blow in like a hurricane, and then as soon as the storm is over, it's over. And not a whole lot of color or variation to the look of everything either. At least at my show, it was dark with tons of red light being blasted at you and the band from every direction. Now on stage, it looked to be obviously Ride, obviously Zach Hill, and Nick Reinhardt of Terra Mello's fame, who has also collaborated with the band. Nick there was certainly no slouch, not only because it was cool to hear him play a lot of his guitar parts live, but also he was able to recreate the guitar parts of, you know, key and classic tracks such as Spread Eagle Across the Block, and even seemed to have his guitar running through a rig where he could recreate a lot of the key sounds and samples just using his guitar. I believe there was a point where, during one of the cuts from NOTM, his guitar was like executing some of the Björk vocals. If I was like, kind of seeing what he was doing and kind of connecting it to the sounds that I was hearing correctly. But for the most part, there would be some kind of sound or riff or synth line that Nick would be recreating with his guitar. There would be kind of very minimal backing as far as beats go, and a lot of that would just like kind of be obviously handed over to Zach, and he would just be kind of like, redoing the rhythms of these songs just with live kit, just with live drums. You had Ride there, obviously, doing his vocal parts, though of course there are a lot of effects and background vocals and overdubbing that wasn't necessarily accounted for, so sometimes he would just kind of leave certain parts up for the crowd to sing, or not fully repeat some sections of songs, because obviously it's a lot to demand of one single person vocally. He only has so much lung capacity, especially when you consider like he's pretty much yelling and screaming most of the lyrics, and anything else that these songs contain that was necessary to have in the mix was kind of just being played through a backing track, and that backing track was pretty much like the guiding thread that ran through everything, that kind of brought us from change to change to change, switched us from song to song. Nick was great. Again, cool to see him kind of playing with the parts that he was allotted for these songs live. Zach, of course, at this point, years and years and years on into his career, he is still an unstoppable, an absolute beast. He absolutely, positively did not miss a single beat during this entire performance, and if he did, he was going so fast and playing so aggressively, you couldn't even tell. Then there was Ride, who, after a decade plus of doing this stuff, did not come across as ferocious as I have seen him in the past on some tracks. Now, this could be due to a lot of things. I mean, again, it's a pretty long tour for the band. The dude is 40 plus at this point. To ask him to go as extreme as possible for 30 songs, like it's 2011, would be insane and unhinged. But also, I was noticing a difference in intensity with the band collectively, depending on what the song was and what era it kind of came from in the Death Grips catalog. Key tracks and major hits from The Money Store, for example, it more or less felt like they were settling in and just kind of allowing the song to play through, just letting the song be what it was going to be and not trying to, overdo the performance or be super over the top with it. And maybe that's just kind of the nature of the tracks on that record. They're super chorus and verse oriented. They're catchy. They're essentially pop songs with a hip hop industrial slant. Whether or not that was Hustle Bones or The Fever or I've Seen Footage, it just kind of seemed like, the band was just playing those tracks as straight as possible. Though I will say the rendition they did of the track Blackjack in the middle of the set was really huge, really loud, enveloping, and kind of nuts. I don't know if there's like some kind of special power to hearing that track live that it just doesn't really have on record for me anymore, but like I was really feeling it maybe more than any other Money Store track during that performance. And then they ended the whole thing off with Hacker, which was killer. So yeah, there were those tracks, but when the band would happen upon a No Love Deep web cut, Ride would go insane, just screaming his brains out. Zach's drum performances seemed way more unhinged. I was also feeling a bit more oomph from the band as they were performing tracks from the ex-military mixtape, as well as Bottomless Pit, especially Giving Bad People Good Ideas. Zach and Nick were just like on another level in terms of like the speed and almost like, the grindcore influence of that track. So the extremity, the energy, how tight the band felt, did sort of vary from track to track. Again, I don't know exactly what to attribute it to. It could have something to do with like, the musical makeup of certain songs from certain eras in the band's career. Could have something to do with, how passionate and excited they feel to play certain tracks, how much they enjoy performing certain tracks. But still, I was pleased to see that the set list here covered a pretty wide range of music from the band's career. Obviously, given they've come out with so many records over the past decade, they're never going to be able to dig fully into one single album, you're only going to get like, some of the biggest or most fan favorite moments from any given project. But still, it was cool to hear a bit of NOTM. It was cool to hear a bit of Jenny Death, a bit of the Steroids project, them even touching down a little bit on Year of the Snitch toward the end. I was sort of afraid that they wouldn't have kind of featured that record all that much. But yeah, pretty much every project got a bit of representation in the set list. Outside of that, I'm not sure how much there else is to report about this show. I thought it was good. I thought it was decent. Maybe not my favorite Death Grips performance ever, but certainly hit a bit harder than that time that I caught them at a festival down in Texas, like I mentioned earlier. That could have had a lot to do with like my proximity to the stage and just kind of the general vibe of the venue, though. The band came through, just banged out the hits, did it pretty unceremoniously and without much in the way of any theatrics. And maybe that's like, kind of the biggest letdown of the performance generally. There wasn't really anything in terms of like, a wow factor, anything surprising, anything mind-blowing, but I feel like over the years I've kind of come to expect that from Death Grips and the sort of antisocial and standoffish relationship that they have with their fans. They only come out of the shadows every so often, and the fact that they're even performing at all is like the surprise in and of itself. Because I guess they could just so easily be saying, fuck you, we're not going to perform again or release music for another 5 or 10 years, and you're going to like it. There's really a lack of any significant connection to the crowd. The band very much seems like they're in their own world performing at us, as opposed to there being kind of like a mutual energy feed sort of thing. So as a result, it feels a little less like watching a unique live performance and more like watching like, a film, like a pre-recorded thing that would pretty much play out the same way regardless of where or when you're seeing it. So I think it's really that kind of kept the show from feeling like one of the best I've seen from either them or just generally. But still, if you are a Death Grips fan, considering how rare that it is that they're on the road, I would still recommend going out and seeing them if you get the chance. But yeah, that's that. Those are my thoughts. If you've caught any of the shows on this tour, let me know what you thought. You're the best. Mwah. Anthony Fantano. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Death Grips perform live forever.